But grace will change you if you start believing what He says. If He says you're holy, blameless, and above reproach, you ought to approach Him that way. You ought to live that way. You ought to wake up and not feel bad about this and that and nitpick and critique. You ought to just wake up and say, man, I'm yours. You said today that I could come to you with an unveiled face boldly into the throne of grace, and I thank you for loving me. I thank you for washing me clean of everything I've ever done outside of you and allowing me to stand holy, blameless, and above reproach in your presence. What a Father you are. See, you start your day, you believe that, it'll change the way you live. It'll empower you to live in righteousness. It'll empower you. All of a sudden, sin's never your issue. Righteousness is your foundation. And it says, if I live and present my members to righteousness, it'll produce its own fruit to holiness. Now I ain't even biting my lip trying to change. The truth's changing me. And he who the Son sets free, he's free. Why? Because the truth shall make you free. You see how it works? And now I ain't trying to work this thing on my own. I'm just receiving grace and I'm being changed through believing. Believing. We're believers. That's what we say. Believers of what? My feelings? My past episodes? Who did what? What am I believing? I got to believe this gospel. Every promise is to the believer. Don't you sell your believer cheap. Everything wants a piece of your believer. If you were the enemy, wouldn't you try to influence what men believe? Wouldn't you even be okay if they fill the church up and just don't believe quite right? What's the matter? You got 10,000 people coming to your church and Christ ain't formed in folks. And they're upset and they're mad at each other and people sit over there because so-and-so's sitting over there, so I'm over there. It says if you hate your brother, you're in darkness until now. It don't matter if you got both hands raised and waving a flag. Man, don't you sell cheap to religion. You surrender to Christ. Are you with me? I know I'm a little intense right now. We all right? Come on, man. What? I don't even think the devil cares if we go to church. He cares if you walk in love. He doesn't care how big the ministry is. He don't care. He don't care if the church is 15,000. He cares if he sees Christ in you. He cares if he can't touch you through offense and bitterness and despair and discouragement. And all of a sudden he's poking and prodding and all his strategies and schemes that he set up bouncing off of you because you wake up surrendered, your identity secure in Christ and your motives pure. And to the pure all things are pure and the pure in heart shall see God. All of a sudden you're alive for one reason and that's untouchable. And then that scenario with my wife, phew, and he's sitting there going, oh, I pulled it on that when I got her to, whew, now he'll fall. And all of a sudden, you don't fall. Ain't that something? Your war is not flesh and blood. I understand we wrestle. That means there's a contention with powers and principalities and spiritual wickedness in high places. There's devices and schemes that the devil set against us to keep us from living out our faith. But if you take those schemes personal, you're going to make a big mistake. You got to think for the kingdom. You can't say, well, what about me? You gave that up when you denied yourself. You can't claim rights. How do you deny yourself and have all these rights? You got one right, to be like He is in that moment. That's your right. The one right you have is to live Christ in your moment. That's what you do. That's what denying yourself means. That's why you can't live in unforgiveness. Watch this. It's impossible to understand what I'm saying and have a validation to live in unforgiveness and understand what I'm saying. So you either don't understand or you don't want to. And they're two scary options. Because you're destroyed for the lack of, and if you don't want to, then you're not for Him, you're actually scattering. Because you don't want to live out His value. And you're assuming a right to something that you inherited through Adam, not Christ. So the thing that Jesus is asking you to give up isn't even what you were ever created to be. He's just asking you to give up the lie. Give up that trait in personality, that area in emotion that has nothing to do with how He created you. It's what you became through the fall. So, you could get up here and preach and be intense and say, this will cost you everything. God is asking everything. Are you ready to give it all and everything? And you make it sound like some militant boot camp thing. All He's asking you to give is what you never were in the first place. He's just asking you to surrender the lie, the thing that never produced fruit and never produced life. To give up that one little stumbling block called self-centeredness, self-focus, self-defense, self-justification. Self. I never made you for you. I made you for my great name. Are you willing to give up what you inherited through Adam and take on what I paid for through my blood? That's Christianity, people. That's healthy identity.